Hello, I'm George Saylor of the LD Fargo Public Library in beautiful downtown Lake Mills, Wisconsin. And I just recently listened to the audio version of Chasing the Devil, my 20-year quest to capture the Green River Killer by David Reichert. Reichert was a junior homicide investigator for the King County Sheriff in the Seattle, Washington area when in 1980 in the Green River they found the bodies of 4 women, both in the water and on the shore right next to the river, prostitutes who had been murdered and left there. And since Reichert was the first one to respond, he was the primary investigator, and he stayed in the center of the investigation of the Green River serial killer for the next 20 years. Gary Ridgway was eventually captured, confessed, and convicted for those crimes, and it took 20 years to find him. And Ridgway talks about that, how difficult the investigation was. They had 40,000 tips that we received about the investigation, and they had 17,000 suspects, or possible suspects, that they had to investigate, interview, and look into, and then finally rule out before they found the real guy. And it was a very difficult process. They got a lot of heat from that, from the press, also from some of the victims' families. But part of the problem was that Gary Ridgway was murdering prostitutes. And prostitution is legal. They don't want to talk to the police. They might have something going on with drugs, they might know something else that's going on that's illegal, and they're afraid of the police. They don't want to deal with them, and so they don't talk to them. And there's not a lot of information there from the victims. The victims are all dead, possible victims and their friends and the life. Secondly, the customers that they dealt with, well, they don't want their wives to know. They don't want to get arrested. They don't want somebody from work to know or possibly get fired, and so they don't want to talk to the police. And then the street people who are possible witnesses, they're homeless, maybe they have drug problems, mental problems, something else going on. They can't remember what happened the day before, let alone what happened 30 days ago when one of these women went missing. And what's more, the police would work with the prostitutes and do the best they could to say, you know, get out of here, get out of the work. This guy is trolling back and forth. We don't know who he is, and he's killing women. And women would go missing that they knew about, but the problem was they would have difficulty. It was a transient kind of work. I mean, did this woman move away? Did she get a job somewhere, like a regular office job? Who knows what? And they would know, for instance, that Jane was missing and Sue was missing, but they didn't actually know because of all the different aliases that some of the prostitutes used that it was actually one person. So they had a lot of difficulty kind of tracking everything together. But throughout the whole process, Reichert specifically was very compassionate about the victims and the victims' families. At no point in the book does he use a word like hooker, or whore, or slut, or tramp, or streetwalker, or anything pejorative towards the victims. He refers to them as prostitutes. How they got into the work was irrelevant. Money problems, family problems, drug problems, mental problems, anything. It was irrelevant. It didn't matter. What mattered was that they were murder victims, that Ridgway had killed them, he'd taken away their future, he'd taken away a daughter, a sister, a mom, and he needed to be caught. And an important part of that is that beginning in 1980, when they first found their bodies, the investigation was very meticulous about the crime scene. They took everything, and they searched everywhere. Hair, fibers, pieces of trash, anything, bodily fluids. They kept the evidence, they kept it on file, and so when 20 years later, I mean, this was back before DNA was even a thought as a prosecutorial investigative tool, they had that available for testing, and they were able to catch Ridgway right away for several murders. And then they were able to put the hooks to him and get him to cut a deal so that they could find out what happened to so many of these missing women, because there was a stack of files of women who were missing. They didn't know what happened to them. And when they got Ridgway, he was this small guy, didn't talk much, kind of mumbled, He wouldn't look at you straight, he wouldn't speak clearly, and he was just a liar. Everything he said was a lie, or a half lie, or a partial lie. He didn't know when he was telling the truth, and he probably doesn't even know how to tell the truth. He doesn't know the difference. And they found out his M.O. He would pick these women up, he would drive them out somewhere, he would strangle them, rape them, and then he would dump their bodies. And he would have these preferred dumping spots where he would leave, like, say, 5, 10 women. He'd kill one, drop it off, drop again, drop again. And by the time the police found these dump sites, I mean, they would be walking along and they would literally stumble over a body in the thick woods where he would dump them off at. And then he would go back and he would rape the corpses. He was also a necrophiliac. But they eventually caught the guy, and they were able to pressure him into a deal to let them know what happened to all these women, recover the bodies, and let the families kind of recover. And some of the families, they were very grateful to the investigators, and other ones were just angry. Their daughter was murdered, their sister was murdered, after all these other women were killed. Why didn't you find this guy before my kid was murdered? Why didn't you find him sooner? And so Reichert has to deal with that. I mean, on the inside, he's tearing up because he still hasn't found this guy. It took him 20 years. And all these women are being killed, women he's warned need to get off the street, and they end up dying. And then the families come back and are blaming him. But it's a very good book. It was actually up for an Audie Award in 2005. That's an annual award for audiobooks. That's why it's called the Audie. But Chasing the Devil by Dave Reichert. He's actually a congressman now out of Washington. My 20-year quest to capture the Green River serial killer. It's a very good book, both to read and to listen to. Like I said, listen to the audio version. I'm Gerard Saylor of the O.D. Fargo Public Library, beautiful downtown Lake Mills, Wisconsin, and that's what's true.